everyone understands English okay?
Yes.
English semester hai. Okay. That's good. Because kyonki very Hindi kahut purnam hai. My Russian is much better. But anyway, Hare Krishna. Very nice to be here with you all, devotees. And I have been requested to say something about a very interesting subject, the demons in Krishna's Vrindavan Leela and the anathas they represent. Are you familiar at all with this subject, this type of idea? That, you know, when, at least according to the descriptions in Srimad Bhagavatam, when Krishna was living in Vrindavan, yes, Bhakti, you can use a cushion.
Yeah.
Bhakti, anyway. When Krishna was in Vrindavan, as Srimad Bhagavatam says, then he encountered, let me just check, I have the list here. He encountered 21 demons. Actually, there was a lot more, but he encountered, as recorded in Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Purana, he encountered 21. And beginning, who can tell me, help me please, who was the first demon that Krishna encountered in Vrindavan?
Putana.
Putana. Very good. Well done. Yes, and now this is a little more tricky. Who was the last demon that Krishna encountered in Vrindavan?
Keshi.
Come?
Keshi.
Almost. Good guess. Almost, but not quite. Who was it? Vyomasura. Who was number 21, yes. So let us say a few words about these things. First of all, though, you can just repeat after me. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Yes, right. So I'm going to, first of all, we'll see how far we get really, but first of all, at least, I'm going to run through the list of the demons in Vrindavan. This is just in Vrindavan. And with each one, the particular anatha that particular one represents. Because this is according to Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, one of our great previous acharyas. Each one of these demons in Vrindavan specifically represents a particular what we call anatha. I don't know if you're familiar with that term. Artha means, I mean, you could say strictly speaking, something useful. Yes, something you can utilize. benefit from like that. But anartha means something useless, or even something not just like useless, you want to throw it away, but something which is detrimental, something which is bad for you. Yeah, just like, you know, you may have no money, you may have zero in your bank account, but if you are in debt, if you are minus, it's even worse than having nothing. Hare Krishna. Right. So that's the idea of anartha, something useless or detrimental, actually bad for you. Right. So let's go through these first of all. Well, before I actually start, let me read a verse about the first one, Putana. And it has this verse, it's 10th canto, chapter 6, verse 44. And it is what we call a phala stuti, means a prayer which is showing phala, the fruit, the result of doing whatever the verse is talking about. It's a phala stuti. So it says, 10.6.44, Ya etat putana moksham, Krishnasya bakam adhutam, Srinuyach tradaya martyo, Govinde lavate ratim, which means any person who hears with faith and devotion about how Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, killed Putana, and who thus invests his hearing in such childhood pastimes of Krishna. So such a person certainly attains. Let's just wait. Wait together.
That stand. Where I brought. The stand is not quite the right size. This is our Harinam system.
Oh, I see.
We know that it always works.
It's better. Yes, it's better to have a microphone. Otherwise, we may get distracted. Yes, so devotees, let me just read the translation again. Please listen carefully. Suniye. Any person who hears with faith and devotion about how Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, killed Putana, and who thus invests his hearing in such childhood pastimes of Krishna, certainly attains attachment for Govinda, the Supreme Original Person. So that's just to encourage you all to listen carefully, because if we listen carefully, we will get great benefit. specifically in this case of Putana, we will develop, if we listen carefully to the narration, we will develop attachment for Krishna. It's a very deep idea. It means like real attachment for Krishna. Basically like, more or less like unbreakable attachment. Yeah, for Krishna, Govinda, and that is just extremely beneficial. Extremely beneficial. So that's a phalastuti. That particular verse we just read. Okay, so there are 21, and I'm going to run through these demons, the names, and the anathas they represent, and then, depending on how time is going, then we'll see, maybe elaborate on Putana or one or another. How much time do we have?
You can take as much as you want.
The night is young.
At least like
Mongol,
maybe an hour or so.
Mongol Arati is at 4:30. We have plenty of time. Let's not stress. Okay, so I'll just go a little quickly through the list. I may stop and ask you if any of you, because you know Ramapad Maharaj is very much into this whole subject. So Putana, anyone know the particular anatha, undesirable, detrimental thing which Putana represents?
False guru. False guru.
Yes, the false guru, pseudo guru, who may either be a person who's teaching false things in the name of truth, in the name of God, or second possibility is our own conditioned mind. We all have minds, and sometimes our minds get a little sort of distracted from the Lord, and even from things which are just things we should be focused on. Yeah, and so we have to control our mind. Otherwise our mind can deviate us from Krishna consciousness, or even just what we're trying to achieve in life. Yeah. Right. So second one was Shakat Asura, who represents the tendency to carry a cartload of bad habits from before. Yeah. So, yeah, bad habits and attractions to bad things, like materialistic things. Then there is Trinavarta, who was the whirlwind demon. And he represents, very interesting, anatha, the false pride arising from material scholarship. Yes. Which gives rise, material scholarship, which gives rise to bogus philosophies and has a blinding effect, like a whirlwind which blows dust around and it may blind you. Yeah. Yes, so that's Trinavarta, because he was the whirlwind spinning around. Right, and then there is the deliverance of Nala Kuvara and Mani Griva, how Krishna delivered them. They were in the form of two trees, Arjuna trees. I don't know if you're familiar with those particular trees. They're Bharatiya Vriksh, eh? You still get Arjuna trees in India to some degree. They have very deep roots. So they used them. They took them to Mauritius, which is probably a place you haven't been. But in Mauritius they get cyclones every year, almost every year. They have at least one cyclone which destroys all the crops and creates havoc. So they imported Arjuna trees from India, and they grow them as like windbreaks. Yeah, because they got deep roots. So this Nalakuvra and Manigriva, they had been cursed, and they were in the forms of these two trees, which Krishna knocked over, and in that way he delivered them. So they represent, they were two sons of Kuvera. Imagine you know of Kuvera. Prabhupada referred to him as the treasurer of the demigods, the Devas and Devis. So they're like very high society people. And they represent, or the Anatha represents, the pride from having high birth and aristocracy, which is rooted in the madness for wealth. Yes, that sort of pride that just see I'm in a big family, rich family, or some royalty or something, and therefore I am very good. I am great. People should admire me. And that, of course, is connected with the Damodar Leela. And you probably know that coming up in about 2 weeks is the month of Kartik. Begins on the 18th. At least in Vrindavan it does. Here I suppose it's the same. Yeah, on the 18th. And we observe it, very, very carefully. Then the fifth demon, is Vatsasura, who came in the form of a calf. And Vatsasura represents Anathas connected with bringing children up. It's a very important one for family people, yeah, with your children. Children are not just cuddly little soft toys, to play games with. They have to be trained and brought up. Yes. Otherwise, like Krishna, he was Makanchor. And Mother Yashoda was trying to correct him in different ways, and in the Damodar Leela, by tying him up so he wouldn't do his nonsense. He would stop stealing the butter. Yes, because she was afraid that Krishna, if she didn't correct him and stop this stealing habit that he had developed, then he would grow up to become a criminal. He would become the head of the Makan Mafia. And maybe steal, not motor cars, of course they didn't have, but like ox carts, buffalo wagons, hijack them. And people would think, what sort of useless mother did he have? Couldn't train them to become a proper human being. So yeah, Vatsasura, that's important and relevant. So then number 6 is Bakasura, who is in the form of like a stork, if you know what I mean, like semi-aquatic bird, you know, long legs, long beak, and they stay around lakes. Yeah, so that's Bakasura, who represents hypocrisy, duplicity, cunning duplicity, deceptiveness, false types of behavior. Then number 7 was Agasura. Agasura, who was one of the 2 snake demons that Krishna encountered. Yes, and Agasura represents enviousness, cruelty, like that, causing trouble to others out of envy. Very nasty. And Aga, who can tell me what Aga means?
Sin.
Huh?
Sin.
Yeah, actually, that's a good translation. Aga, Asura. Yeah. So, in other words, his name was Sin, and Asura means demon. So his name means sinful demon. Imagine you ask a person, what's your name? Well, my name is Sinful Demon, actually. Just see. It's interesting. Number 8 is Brahma Vimohana Leela. This is when Lord Brahma gets into Vimohana. Moha. Moha means illusion. V means very big illusion. Yeah. He steals Krishna's cowherd boyfriends and the calves. So this represents, very interesting anartha, thinking that Lord Krishna's opulent features, powerful features, are higher than his sweetness, his sweet features, like his beauty and his loving relationships. Like particularly in Vaikuntha, there's Lakshmi and Narayan is Krishna, but not fully manifesting himself, but manifesting that very opulent feature. Yeah. The husband of Lakshmi, who's the goddess of fortune. Yeah, so people worship Narayan, at least they're meant to, with great awe and reverence and respect. But with Krishna, at least in Vrindavan, as you probably know, Krishna is one of the village boys, and they don't see him as God, generally. They just see him as the most wonderful little boy. And they just love him. And they don't, for example, like with Lord Narayan, in Vaikuntha, they bow down before him. But in Vrindavan, they don't bow down before Krishna. They don't bow down. He plays with his friends, and the relationships are informal. Yeah, just loving relationships. The relationships are just molded by love. Whereas with Lord Narayan, they see him that, oh, he's God. We must bow down, offer him respect. But they don't, in Vrindavan, they don't feel like that about Krishna. They just love him. So in other words, to think that Aishvarya, if you're familiar with the term, that opulent, powerful, very sort of grand feature of the Lord is more important than Madhurya. Madhurya meaning the sweet feature. Right, and then number 9 devotees is Dhenukasura, who came in the form of a donkey. And he represents the mode of ignorance, tamagun, like stupidity and dullness and ignorance of spiritual knowledge. Then number 10 was Kaliya, who was another snake, a serpent. And he represents, interesting and dangerous anartha, poisoning the hearts of devotees with poisonous talk about other devotees, like criticizing other devotees. Yeah. Number 11 is extinguishing the first forest fire. There were 2 forest fires, at least recorded in the Bhagavatam. The first one represents intercommunal discord among different groups of devotees, like the devotees from, where are we again? Maryland are better than the devotees from New York. Ah, you know, that sort of attitude. Yeah. Discord amongst different groups of devotees. Then number 12 is Pralambasura, and he represents the mode of passion, rajagun, lusty desires, and desire for personal gain or honor. Then 13 is the second forest fire, which represents the influence of atheism. Yeah. 14 is the Brahmins who were performing sacrifice. Yeah, they were Brahmins. They weren't just born in Brahmin families, but they were Brahmins. They were like priests, that sort of person. And they were doing a sacrifice. And they disregarded Krishna. Some of Krishna's friends came and said, you know, Krishna's nearby, he's hungry, can you give some food? And they refused. You know, we are Brahmins, so, you know, don't bother us. Right, so they represent callousness towards Krishna due to pride because of one's position in Varnashram. You know, even to this day, you know, to some degree, I mean, the times have changed, but still, you would know at least as well as me or better, that there's still people who are very attached, particularly to being in Brahmin families. You know, if you're Gujarati, the Joshis, or anyway, those types of families, Dvivedi, Trivedi, Chaturvedis. I mean, historically there's that tendency to be proud of one's background in terms of birth. Although I know one of these fellows, he's a Brijbasi, so you know, that's something important. But he is a taxi driver, and they call him Panditji because he's from a Brahmin family. And he drove us once to, where's Madan Mohan? Karoli, from Vrindavan to Karoli, then Jaipur and back. And I asked him, he said, yeah, my name's Panditji. He didn't speak English, but Mera naam Panditji hai. And I said, oh, up Brahmin hai. Hanji. And he pulled out this Brahmin thread, which was sort of the color of my computer. It was an antique one. It was really dirty. And so we're driving along, and we came to this one, when we're going from Karoli to Jaipur, it's kind of a back road, and there was a fork. Either you go left or you go right. And there was a sign in Hindi, which, you know, I can read, and we were meant to go to, I forget the name of the place, but some particular place, and it was to the right, the sign said, to the right. But old Panditji, he stopped the car, and he's looking at the sign. And then I said, Panditji, Dekiye, yeah? What would you say? Buying. Right. Buying. Or just left side shallow. And Panditji, he didn't believe me because I'm a foreigner. So he got out and asked someone who said, yeah, Gangapur, I think it is, Gangapur. And yeah, so I understood Panditji is illiterate. He cannot read his own language, let alone being a pundit. But you don't get a lot of pundits who are taxi drivers. So anyway, right. So yeah, having a pride, because I'm born in a high family. Then, that was number 14. 15 is overcoming the pride of Lord Indra, means the Govardhan Leela. And that represents the anartha of thinking that demigod worship is the highest type of religion. Yes, higher than worshipping Krishna. and of course that means the Govardhan Leela, correcting Indra, who thought he was better than the Brijvasis and better than Krishna. Then 16 is when Nanda Maharaj was stolen by Varuna. And it represents an interesting anartha, thinking that spiritual life can be enhanced by taking intoxication. Hari Bol. We don't do that. Yeah, but some people do. Some people do. Yeah. We were on parikrama at Darshana, and you'll be in Vrindavan area, Darshana, and so on. Anyway, so Darshana, but first of all, we went out to Unchagaon, and there's a garden on the way. We stopped there to have breakfast, and there was, don't mind me saying this, but a big ganja tree growing there. And one of our ladies, a Russian actually, who speaks sort of a bit of English, she said to one of the Babajis there that, you must take this out. You must burn this. Get rid of it. Marijuana tree. So, it was like this high. And she told the Babaji, Prabhupada said, we must not smoke this. And the Babaji said, well, our Prabhupada says it is very good to smoke it. So yeah, thinking that your spiritual life can be enhanced by intoxication. Then number 17 is Nanda Maharaj delivered from the snake. Hare Krishna, Suswagatam. Hare Bol. 17, what did I say? Yeah, Nanda Maharaj delivered from the snake. So that represents impersonalism. Impersonalism, thinking that God is not a person and we are not persons. But basically, generally, it's all one. But through illusion, we think we're individuals. Like that, yeah, that's a simple idea of what's impersonalism. 18 is Shankachuda. And Shankachuda represents being having desires for sense enjoyment under the plea of devotion. Yes. Like, I'll give you an example. We had one boy, when I joined the temple in London, it was early 1973, and there was one young fellow who joined more or less at the same time. He was very enthusiastic to preach to visitors, people who would come to visit the temple. But devotees, listen to this, only the ladies and only the young ladies and only the nice-looking young ladies. And we tried to stop him by saying, listen, let the lady devotees speak to the lady visitors, and us men, we will speak to the male visitors. But he would become angry and say, Prabhu, I am preaching Krishna consciousness, so don't interfere. Unfortunately, because it was an anartha, he did not last long in Krishna consciousness. Then 19 is Arishtasura, who was in the form of a bull. And he represents the anartha of being influenced by invented religions. Just religious practices which someone just dreamed up out of their minds. Yes, right. Then number 20, second to last, is Keshi, in the form of a horse. And he represents the anartha of thinking, I am a great devotee. And last is Vyomasura, who is sort of like, he's referred to as the sky demon. And he represents associating with thieves and other dishonest people, and with people who claim to be avatars. So that's the whole list there. And yeah, when should we finish? 10 o'clock. 9:30. Anyway, okay. Don't worry. I was just joking. So, what to talk about? Let me just focus on one of them a bit. Well, with the month of Kartik coming up, what, in 2 weeks, or on the 18th, I think. At least in Vrindavan, it's the 18th. Let us say a few words about that. Will that be okay with you?
That's very well.
I mean, if, we could talk about any of them, actually, but yeah, right. So the thing is, well, I mean, it's sort of complicated because there's the Damodar Leela, Krishna being tied up, but then that leads to Krishna, who is tied up to a grinding mortar, dragging the mortar between the 2 trees and knocking the 2 trees over. And the trees were forms of these 2. They're basically demigods. They're sons of Kuvera. So they're sort of, very big people. Kuvera is one of the higher demigods. And Krishna released them. So I can just say a few words about that. I will not go over time, all right? Not beyond 10 o'clock. No, 9:30. It's okay. Just joking. So, right. So that pastime represents the anatha of thinking that you have an aristocratic birth and you are wealthy, but particularly like aristocracy. I am important because my ancestors were, usually it means my ancestors were Brahmins, were actually Brahmins. Although you may be, as I mentioned, like this taxi driver, Panditji, he's a taxi driver. Yeah. And it's a bad principle just to go by a person's birth and not in sort of understanding who they are, what they are, is not a very good standard. Just because the family has that background doesn't mean that the current members of the family have that sort of background. Prabhupada gave the example, if you have a brain condition and you need to have an operation done, like neurological defect, you need to have some brain surgery done, then you may go to someone and ask, where I can find a neurologist, and someone may say, oh, my father's a brain surgeon. Maybe I can do it for you. Oh, are you a brain surgeon also? No, I'm a street sweeper or a taxi driver. But my father's a brain surgeon, so, perhaps I can have a go. And you know how brain surgery began? It began with a hammer and a chisel. Historically, that's how brain surgery began. Yes, all right. So now the thing is that Krishna was developing that habit of stealing. He was going from house to house stealing the butter. And Mother Yashoda, as a very responsible mother, she was concerned. He's going to grow up, I mentioned. He'll grow up bad. He'll become a criminal. Yes. So I have to train him and discipline him. And, really, make the points and wag my finger at him strongly and tell him off. So she was trying to do that. But one of the main things she was doing generally was she was Nanda Maharaj, her husband Krishna's father, had a big herd of cows, and they were just like the best cows, giving so much milk, so much and very rich milk. So she found the best of the cows and took them aside and personally milked them, and then turned the milk into yogurt. That's in India, that's how it's traditionally done. In the West, they take the cream out, so therefore the butter is much more fatty and higher cholesterol and worse for the health. But the butter made from yogurt is more healthy, and the ghee made from the butter made from yogurt, yeah, it's good. And it's white. It's white, whereas, yellow, usually the other butter is yellow. So anyway, yeah, she milked the cows, turned the milk into yogurt, churned the yogurt into butter. Do any of you make butter? You used to? Violet may? I see. I've made butter. With it. Churning. Good exercise. It's really good exercise. So anyway, yeah, and so she'd make like 20 kilos of butter and just give it to Krishna. Here, look, just take this and just eat it. Yeah, so it's like the best quality. And Krishna, so then she'd go off and do something else, and Krishna would start eating the butter. She'd come back in 5 minutes, Krishna was gone. He was next door stealing the butter. Yeah. But there's a reason, which I don't know how aware you are of. Many devotees are not aware of it. Why does Krishna steal the butter? It's not just because, he likes butter. Like, everybody usually has some favorite types of prasadam. Yeah. In South Africa, you know what they like? They like samosas with sweet corn and paneer. It is the national favorite amongst the Indian people. There's a lot of Indian people there. Oh yeah. So anyway, everyone has some favorite of prasadam. And it's just a question of taste. But with Krishna, it's not just that he likes the taste of butter and that's it. The thing is, the cows, they're thinking beings. They're not just dumb animals. Those cows, they're Surabhi cows. They love Krishna, and they want Krishna to get their milk. And the ladies, they milk the cows. The men don't milk the cows. The ladies milk the cows. And then they make different things out of the milk. Milk sweets, all different types, and etc., etc. And they make butter. They make yogurt, then they make butter from the yogurt. And the ladies are thinking, we want Krishna to get this butter. We want Krishna to get this butter because their love has gone into it. And the cow's love has gone into the milk to start off with. And Krishna, all Krishna wants to taste is love. That's all. He's not worried about the taste in terms of sensual experience. He just wants to taste love. And he knows they want him to take this, because their love, it's just saturated with their love. And Krishna wants their love. And the most of their love is in the butter. Because you have to work hard. To make yogurt, you can do it with your eyes closed, basically. But to make butter, it takes time and it's hard work. It's the hardest work. And so the most of their love goes into the butter. But the problem is, the wives, the ladies know that their husbands will not be happy if they give all the butter away to Krishna. So, because it's their livelihood. They trade dairy products to get vegetables. They don't grow vegetables themselves. They trade them to get vegetables and grains and so on, and clothes or whatever. So, if the wives give all the butter away to Krishna, the husbands will be angry. Maybe there will be divorce. Yeah. So therefore, to save them from being blamed, Krishna steals it. He really wants to get it. It's very important to get that love. But to avoid those ladies, devotees, getting into trouble, he steals the butter and he takes the blame. So when the husbands come home in the evening and say, okay, where's the butter? The wives, acting sort of innocent, say, you won't believe it. Krishna came and stole it again. It's terrible. But they're very happy, actually. And they act like, it's a problem. Yeah. That's why Krishna steals the butter, because he wants to taste their love. And the most of their love is there in the butter. Not just because he likes to eat something tasty. So anyway, we don't have so much time, so this pastime, interesting point, it took place on the Diwali day. Yeah, on the Diwali day. Mother Yashoda is churning some yogurt into butter for Krishna, but then some milk starts boiling over in the kitchen. The milk is not just, milk. The milk is alive. And the milk's, while she's churning the yogurt into butter, she's breastfeeding Krishna, and the milk in the pot can see Krishna is drinking her milk. And if I don't stop him from drinking her milk, he won't drink me. Because the milk, it's the service of the milk to be drunk by Krishna. That's what the milk wants. So therefore the milk started acting like it was boiling over. And so Mother Yashoda stopped churning and stopped breastfeeding Krishna and went to save the milk. So Krishna became transcendentally, spiritually upset. Not really upset. It's just part of the rasa, the interaction. And he broke some pots of butter that were hanging from the ceiling, made a big mess, a real housewife's nightmare. Just butter and yogurt and milk all over the place. And he ate some of the butter, and when he'd had enough, he started feeding the monkeys until the monkeys had had enough. Now the monkeys, he's offering it, go on, take some. The monkeys are refusing, and Mother Yashoda came back in, And Krishna's feeling, you know, sort of irritated with his mother. It's all transcendental. It's not like how we feel irritated with someone sometimes. But Krishna acting like that, Krishna said, Mata, just see, your butter is so bad, even the monkeys won't eat it. And then Mother Yashoda thought, this boy has gone too far now. I have to discipline him. So she went to catch him, but he ran. And he's dodging around here and there. And her mood of affection, loving concern, that she wants to actually help him by disciplining him. Not she wants to get angry and scream at him or hit him or something like that. But out of concern, that mood of concern just overflowed out of her heart. And then Krishna could not stop himself being caught. She caught him. Otherwise you can't catch God. And then she had to tie him up anyway. You know, it's a long story. Same thing. She wanted to tie him up, but you know the story, right? You know the story. Gets a piece of rope. Oh, this is long enough. Because it's just a small boy. Puts it around his waist. It's 2 fingers too short. Oh, how can that be? Anyway, no problem. I'll just get some more rope. So she got some more. And now, you know, eventually she's got, say, 10 meters of rope. And if 10 meters of rope will not get around your tummy, you have been eating too much prasadam. So, anyway, eventually she had like kilometers of rope. But she never thought, wait a minute. He's little boy, you know, his waist is this size. I've got so much rope. This is impossible. Something is really wrong. She never thought like that. She just thought, yeah, I got to discipline him, and I just got to carry on until I can tie him up. So then her mood of loving concern overflowed again. The rope was tied up, it was enough. Even at that point, if she'd had, you know, an inch of rope, it would have been enough. Because Krishna just sort of surrendered to her, and she tied him up. But then so now Krishna's tied up, and Krishna goes crawling around, and there are these 2 trees, and they are Nala Kuvara and Manigriva, sons of Kuvera, who had got up to some nonsense, real nonsense. So Narada Muni cursed them to become trees. So they were playing around with no clothes on and just making fools of themselves. So, yeah. So Narada Muni cursed them, you become trees. And then, you know, then you can stand naked for years. And when it's hot, you'll be hot. When it's cold, you'll be cold. When it rains, you'll be wet. Then you'll learn that you've got to be more decent. Yeah, I mean, that's also a bit of a long story. So now they're trees, Krishna. But then Narada Muni blessed them at the end. They begged for forgiveness and he blessed them. All right, in the future, Krishna will come and deliver you from the curse. But for the time being, stand as trees. So Krishna dragged the grinding mortar between the trees, knocked down the trees, out they came. They offered prayers to Krishna, and Krishna sent them back to the heavenly planets, but with the blessing that if you just remember me for the rest of your lives, then at the end of these lives, you'll go back to Godhead. Yeah. And that's basically the end of the story. And they were Arjuna trees. I mentioned they have very long root systems. And so therefore they took them to Mauritius, because there's loads of Indian people in Mauritius. I mean, the place is run by Indians, actually. And so they use them for windbreaks. And even a hurricane can come, but it will not blow one of those trees over. But our Krishna, he is so strong. He knocked over 2. Just see, Krishna is very powerful. So yeah, that was the end. I mean, that's a very abbreviated form of the pastime. But that's there, yeah. How Krishna delivered Nalakuvra and Manigriva. And look, we're 6 minutes over. 6 minutes and 22 seconds. Anyway, what should we do now?
Any question answers?
Well, let me just tell you another little thing. From Gopal Champu, there's very interesting, like extra description. Afterwards, now Krishna has knocked down the trees and the demigods have gone, but he's still tied. So Mother Yashoda unties him. Nanda Maharaj couldn't untie him, only Mother Yashoda could untie him. And then Mother Yashoda goes off, and Krishna's in a bit of a mood. Nanda Maharaj comes, his father, and Nanda Maharaj says that, oh, you were tied up. You must have been naughty. Were you naughty? And Krishna says, no. And Nanda Maharaj says, but your mother tied you up. You know, you must have been naughty. And Krishna said, no, I am never naughty. And Nanda Maharaj says, well, look, now you're untied. Why don't you just go to your mother, give her a hug? And Krishna says, no, I'm not going to her. She tied me up. It was unfair. And Nanda Maharaj says, well, look, who are you going to be with during the day then? And Krishna says, I will stay with you. Nanda Maharaj says, but I have to go out in the fields and herd the cows, and you're too small for that. And Krishna says, no, I will stay with you. And Nanda Maharaj says, but you must drink your mother's breast milk. Krishna says, no, I will drink the milk of the cows. And then Mother Yashoda comes in, and a pretty dramatic thing happens. Nanda Maharaj, just as a strategy, a parental strategy, to reawaken his affection for his mother, which is, covered by this little bit of an angry mood. Nanda Maharaj, he's not serious, but he raises his hand and says to Krishna, shall I hit her? And Krishna says, no, don't hit her. Don't hit her. Now his love for his mother is coming up again. Yeah. So then Krishna runs to Mother Yashoda and they embrace, and they both just cry and cry and cry in each other's arms. Very nice. Hare Krishna. Any comments or questions? Prashna hai. Because you know what? You know what they told me? Them, the ones who say things. They told me that the devotees in Maryland are bahut buddhiman hai. Yeah, very intelligent and very interested in understanding things, and and so they have many questions. That's what they told me. Any comments or questions? Yes, Mataji.
Thank you so much for the wonderful time, Maharaj. I always, whenever I hear these lectures on demons and Krishna killing the demons, I always think to myself that, oh, I don't have this in me. I mean, I don't have this demon in me. So I think my question is, Maharaj, how do we accept that we have these demons in us, and how to work on these?
Yeah, right. First thing is that, at least one approach, first thing is you can pray to Krishna that, my dear Lord Krishna, I know I'm stupid and I don't understand these things, but the problem is that I'm so stupid, I can't see how stupid I am. So Krishna, please give me the insight, the intelligence to see what is wrong with me, what demons or what anathas I actually have. Because, unless something comes out in a very glaring way, I tend to not see it and think, I'm pretty good. Yeah, so that's a good way to start. Because like humility, you need either you need to be smashed and belittled and just embarrassed so badly that you start thinking, wow, I'm useless. But then, materialists become suicidal when they start to feel, actually, no, I'm nothing, I'm useless. So we need to get that intelligence to understand what is wrong with me, what anathas I have, what demons, you could say, are influencing me. We need to pray to Krishna to get that intelligence. Otherwise, our tendency is always, pretty much always, to think we are better than what we are. It's just ingrained so deeply. But now, to really work on ourselves, we have to be able to see what's wrong. Yeah, otherwise we won't know what to do, what we need to do. So we have to pray like that and chant very sincerely. And then Krishna will give us the eyes to see. And then once we start getting some ideas that, I have this anatha, I have that anatha, and, we usually have quite a nice collection of them. Then, we can do, there are different things we can do. One thing, we can pray again to Krishna. Please give me some inspirations. Thank you for letting me see what a murk I am. So now please give me some inspirations, what I can do to become free from them. So that's one thing. We can also, if you've got Prabhupada's books, etc., on your phone or your computer, they're readily available free of charge, there's kind of no excuse for not having them. But then you can start doing searches for, different of these anathas and see how Prabhupada addresses them. That if you're thinking like you're like this, then, you can do this or that. Or you can, then a third thing is to go through the course of Ramapad Maharaj, because he does the same thing. I mean, even in more detail. Yeah. And part of it is that when we're talking about a particular anatha, then we also give some ideas what you can do to try to deal with that anatha. So these are different ways you can address, Yeah. That good, that's nice. Yeah, they were right when they told me, the devotees. I'm intelligent. Anyone else? Mataji.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you so much for the class. Could you please elaborate on the anartha with the Vatsasura demon, connected with bringing children up?
Yeah, right. Yeah, the tendency is, well, there is an essay by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati on Vatsasura and the anatha. Yeah. It's a few pages essay. And he makes all different points. He makes the point that, anyway, he says that it is best at a certain age. Well, the first thing is, children are not toys. Cuddly little soft toys. Children are devotees, and they have to be trained, and they can be trained from childhood, not just when they get a bit older, it doesn't have to start then. They can be trained from the earliest days. Yeah. So he says, but when they reach a certain age, like school age, that generally it's best, if there is a devotee teacher available, that it is generally the best that the parents don't try to teach the child, like at school age. But it's best if another person who is a devotee, not just, some teacher from the local school, that person will then take over the education of the child. Of course, those devotee teachers, there's not enough of them. So therefore, it can be very good to homeschool children. And there's a growing number of devotees in different places in ISKCON who are homeschooling. Yeah. I know one boy, he was homeschooled from the first day of going to school. He never went to a regular school at all. And he, was like the #1 student. This is a Russian family in Moscow, in his age group, out of many, many, many children. He was the #1 student. Yeah. So, but that's one point he makes. That it's better for children to be really trained and disciplined by someone other than the parents, because the tendency is for familiarity and just the affection. The parents may not or will not want to really discipline the child. nicely. But I have that essay. I can, if I get your or Prabhu's email address, I can email it to you. It's very interesting. Sure. It's really interesting, actually. Yeah. Hare Krishna.
I'd like to get that essay too.
Okay.
That's very interesting.
Oh, yeah.
I have a sister who's involved in her community in education and teaching other community members how to educate. And she's very interested in Krishna consciousness. And she likes something that Prabhupada once said, that Prabhupada said, from the age, up until the age of 6 or 7, you just give them, pat them with love and affection, and then from that age up until the age of 15, very good discipline, very strong discipline, train them well and teach them everything, and then after the age of 15, the child is complete, then you become their friend.
Right. Sure.
So she was very impressed by that, the conciseness and practicality of that formula. So I think she'd be interested to hear more.
Sure.
I didn't know about this essay.
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah. Okay, will do. Definitely. Okay, devotees. I think time is up. It's,
One more question.
TK.
The question is here, like this anarthas we're talking about is part of subtle body. So as it part of subtle body, do you think like it might have been carried from previous birth also?
It just says again, I missed the first couple of sentences.
Yeah, so the anarthas like enviousness or
Okay.
ignorance, like is it carried from like previous birth? So yeah,
Okay.
since it's a part of like.
Right. Yeah, well, you know, no one is born as like a blank slate, just ready to be programmed. People, all children are born with natures, which are from, of course, previous lifetime. Yeah, that's there. But, at that age, they are malleable. They can be changed. And so if they're trained nicely, even if they've come, into this life with sort of a little more aggressive or, not so pleasant nature, but they can be transformed into good people by good training. Yes. So, yeah, it's a point. Each child has their nature. And I assume you're a parent and you may have a couple of children and you would know. Someone was telling me just a few weeks ago that their first child was very peaceful, a boy, and the second child, also a boy, was much more sort of active and, not hyper, but quite a different nature. And where could it come from? Did it come from the previous life? But yeah, the point though, ultimately, an interesting point in a broad sense, is like practically anyone can be trained to become a devotee. Even people who are from just like totally different backgrounds altogether. It just depends. The main point is the training. Yeah. And whereas on the other hand, if someone is coming from, like a dharmic type of background into this lifetime, but then they're not trained, then, they're not going to progress. Yeah. It so much depends on the training. So, Sanatana Goswami said, just as you can turn, if you know how, You can turn bell metal, like a base metal, into gold by an alchemical process. So you can change a person. He says by diksha, by initiation, which means a process of training. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
आप लोग सब हमारा प्रोग्राम क्या है?
Nursing Arti and then Prasadam.
Nursing Arti or Kirtan?
Kirtan. Kirtan.
Okay.